We are back, guys. It's time to finish the story of a legend, Skoova Stev.
So, Skoova, whatever happened with the pirates?
So there we were, four quarren, armed with spears, each way a mind to make a mantelpiece of my wee rubbery head. I looked over to me captain, and he stared right back, waving his arms like a goober fish in heat. At the harpoon I held in my hand. Oh, for a black instant, I considered nailing those pirate quarren to the rocks with my harpoon. But something stopped me from pulling the trigger. Perhaps it was the sparkle that caught my eye. The sparkle of a passing glumbrig eel. What would those pirates say to a whole school of glumbrig eels? A crackle and a sparkle as they be, thought I. So I opened my wee mouth and emitted the mating call of the eel.
You speak eel?
Aye, but I forgot to turn on me comm. We Skoova alone heard the cry. But my demented expression put such a fright on the quarren that it dropped the blasters. By the time they'd come to the senses, we were swimming away as fast as our flippers could carry us. It was only later, as we fled aboard the Zephyr's schooner, that I realized how close the real danger was. But I shall continue my tale next time.
Skoova Steve is hilarious.
Where did we end? Ah, yes. The monstrous Captain Wet, his crew and myself fled aboard the pirate schooner of the filthy Zephyrs. Well, fast as the morning thaw, I could tell something was off. Wanyik, he wouldn't look me in the eye. Oh, and a dreadful stench was a brewing his rotten beard. An augur of fate most ill. Wanyik took the helm, and with landing claws away we flew to deep space, putting a few lifetimes between us and those pirates. We found ourselves afield of the Parlimean trade route. As soon as the captain took his hand off the yoke, he put it on his harpoon and gave me a look, like a half-starved tuca cat eyeing sprat. Skoova, snarled the vile captain, you've gone as soft as an oyster's navel. If I couldn't trust you to spare a quarren with your blaster in your mouth, how could I trust you to skewer the great goober fish? Aye, my hesitance to pull the trigger had me undone. In spite of my most rabid pleas, the captain jettisoned wee Skoova in an escape pod. The last thing I saw was his dread smile, crooked like a bayman's backbone. And so, my time aboard the grapnel met a briny end. Sitting alone in a pod, in deep space, with nothing but a tank of old cod and gash. I'll tell you more later, lad. The despair. Ugh, the stench. It's enough to set my stomach a churn to this very day.
So, Skoova, back to your story. Were you actually marooned in deep space by Captain Wet?
Aye, lad. There I sat, tummy a rumble, gazing out at the void. My somber reflection staring back from the porthole. Was it hours? Years? Neither would faze me. But I do recall this. After a term most interminable, there she was, like a bowsprit cutting through a crest. The great space whale, still sporting the grapnel's imprint on her side, emerged from a parted void. Aye, even now it brings the salt to my eyes. Her great blubbery undulations tossed me pod through the stars like a goose-winged skiff. The stars swirled about like 100,000 fishes until suddenly I saw a planet below. There my pod crashed, and there I was rescued by kindly locals. I had been saved by this marvelous creature from the depth of space. I tried searching for her. Alas, to no avail. She eluded me for years before I packed my satchel and headed home for Sakari Tar. Most didn't believe what I'd seen. They say she was not but the terminal spasm of a starving salt's brain. But I know what I saw, lad. I know what I saw. Of course, when I returned home, things were not as I remembered them. But that be a tale for another time.
So Skoova Steve was headed home to his home planet, and the years had changed it, And we're about to find out why.
So, after years of searching for the great whale, I returned home to the frozen shores of Skoova, where my tale began. And this world on which I was weaned and warmed seemed but a moon to me careworn eyes. So small. I foot-slogged my way back to Undun's cave, but I found it empty, and somehow colder than I remembered. You know, lad, sometimes the truth brings peace, and sometimes it brings sadness. The fish is nae always what you thought it would be when it bit the line. I dragged myself out of that cave and back to my village. And what I discovered next sent a spar through me thrice-pickled belly. All me kith and kin, old and bairn, ravaged by famine and cold. For none other than Captain Wanyek Wet had been fishing in their waters, sparing what few fish remained and taking them off-world. And so it was that I found myself once again in search of the dread captain and his crew. Not just for my own justice, but to liberate my very home. When we next speak, I'll tell you what became of my crusade. Aye, our story nears its end. I discovered that Captain Whet was plundering my very home seas for exotic fish, and in the process, starving the old tars who raised me from a wee yoke. I spent many months in search of them. At long last, I discovered them on the salted shores of the third moon of Antine. I hied to Antine and trucked me foe to the Garacus Trench, a fissure sliced clean through the moon's heart. There, amongst the brine and black, I found him. Wanyek Whet and his vile crew, surrounded by glumbering eels, spearing them with their harpoons. "Captain," I cried, "you've broken your promise never to harvest the seas of Skoova. And I said, your command be forfeit if you dinna forswear my home waters." Oh, I'll scarce forget the snarl he issued as he turned to me, slow as a frozen reef, regarding me after years of thinking me dead. "This," he growled, "is why you dinna toss the fish back into the sea." Before I could shake my flippers, the barb of his harpoon spun through the deep, and its hook pierced me in the chest. My juices filled the water, and as my vision grew dark, I espied Wanyek, smiling sharp as a fang.
That's horrible, Skoova.
I told you, lad, that mine be a dark tale. I'll tell you more when next we meet. So there I was, deep in the Garacus Trench, Wanyek's harpoon drilled through me paunch, watching the lights fade from my own eyes. The dread captain peeled his whiskers from his teeth and grinned a most ghastly grin, when suddenly I saw the glumbering eels a-swirl. It seemed that, in the midst of my distraction, they'd taken flight. It dawned on me. I recalled to me mind the great meeting call of the eels, my last hope. So, rousing my final gasp of air, I sounded their shrill cry.
What happened?
Well, lad, I'll tell ye. The eels swarmed in an electric blaze. The dread crew scattered, and Wanyek, that damned Wanyek, that dread captain, was cooked like an evening quillfish. As the eels smote him into the deep, I felt consciousness run out to my ears. Darkness fell upon me. When I awoke, well, find me again, and I'll conclude my tale.
So what happened to the great Skoova Stev?
When I awoke from my last duel with Wanyek, it was on the deck of a fishing schooner. It seemed my speared carcass had bobbed to the surface and been caught by a local fisher.
What about Captain Wet? Did he survive?
If that sack of seared slime yet plagues the galaxy, I've nae heard stem the stern of him, nor of his crew. Perhaps more importantly, the ordeal awoke me to the truth. I had no desire to spear fish, nor fisher. I had no desire to cross harpoons with dread captains, or to skewer the deadliest fish. In the hurly-burly of it all, I lost sight of myself. The fisherwoman who caught me, she knew of a nearby world with a great multitude of fishes. Kobo. So to Kobo did I go. And since, I've realized why I like to fish.
Why's that?
Because I like fish, Cal. I like shiny fish. I like big fish and small fish. I like fish with eyes splayed wide and fish with eyes pointed straight. I even like fish with no eyes at all. And I like seeing the face on lovers like you when they realize just how many kinds of fish there are in this galaxy. Well, that be my tale, Cal. Perhaps it was no as gloomy as I kent.
You went through a lot. I'm glad you're okay, Skoova.
Oh, thank you, lad.
Thank you. You've given me a lot to think about.
Aye, lad. Go ahead and ponder. But don't ponder your years down the river. There's always another fish. Cow, lad.
Hey, Skoova. How's the water?
Ah, fine. I just wanted to thank you for lending me your tank. Plenty more space for plenty more fishes, though. Let's keep them all spinning, eh?
Alright, so in order to get all of Skoova Stev's stories, you have to look at all of the, you have to catch all of the fish. 12 of them to be exact. And on each encounter, he'll give you a different part of his story. We've caught off, the good thing about this game is that once you go Pokemon and catch them all, you don't have to do it again. Just like when you get skill points, in this one, they improved on the new Game Plus, because once you have the skill points, you have them. You don't have to worry about when you start a new Game Plus of having to wait and upgrade every branch. But we are done after hearing the tale of the legendary Skoova Stev. Next, Ragnarok.
Garden's
Later,
looking kind of
squad.
respectable.